first of all, what's up, everyone? Thanks and welcome back to the next Catalyst Live or Media Buying War Room. I'm Matteo with MediaBuyer.com, and this is a weekly live stream session where we have verified 1% rockstar media buyers share what's actually working now. Quick note on the format for today. The first portion of this will be live. That's where we have a stacked panel of A-player rockstars that are going to be breaking down a very top of mind question. And then after about 20 minutes, we'll cut the live stream. We'll cut into a private Q&A exclusively for Catalyst members. And if you want to join these, there's a link in the description. And today we have a few different verified media buyers with me. I'll do just a very quick intro and then we'll jump into it. So we have Ogie Hollywood, ex-Googler. He's been doing this for many years now, spent 92 million predominantly on Google, verifiably generated over 400 million in revenue. Simon Freeman, run ads on TikTok, Meta, Google, spent 90 million and generated 240 million in tracked revenue. Charlie Chambers, which fingers crossed may be joining us today, although might have an off day too. Meta Google ads, 80 million spent, 197 million generated. Vilk, Meta specialist, also with the lens on creative strategy, 25 million spent predominantly on Meta, and then 55 million spent in revenue. So with that said, let's go around the room. Here's today's question. Will AI replace media buyers? What does the future of media buying and marketing look like to you guys? I'll go around. We'll give each of you guys a few minutes to answer here.
Happy to jump in on that one, Matteo. I think it links into a conversation that was kicking off with Phil and myself in the school group, which was, it's very interesting. And I think I see this being thrown around on LinkedIn a lot. Lots of people that are out there doing their lead gen through LinkedIn and trying to create a bit of fear mongering amongst particularly the e-com and lead gen world. But it's an interesting conversation, and I think the more AI generated outputs that I see, particularly creative going into platforms, strategy, ideation, etc., there's just such a wide variety in the quality that comes out, and I think there's clearly some people that are not performance marketers or not media buyers, and what they create is very subpar sometimes, and we often refer to as AI slop. You see a lot of that AI slop going through ad platforms, and I think for a lot of people, they've started to go through this process of volume is the answer, particularly in social platforms, and you see some brands that are throwing out 100 ads a day, all AI generated, and they're just like such poor quality, and they miss so many of the really key ingredients. So I think one of the key points is that definition of what a media buyer is, and I think a lot of these people that do this fear mongering are probably of this misconception that media buying is the button pushing within an ad platform. And sure, some of that can be replaced by AI or machine learning or workflows, etc. But to understand business economics, unit economics, to be able to go so much deeper in terms of how the algorithm supports an ad account, what is happening with the algorithm and how to influence it. And then you jump into things like consumer behavior and buyer psychology. They're all things that a media buyer should have the skill set to do. And when they work with brands, they're all just such really important assets that they bring to the table. So I think this media buying dead type line is very misguided. And I know for myself, my team, and certainly the media buyers that I know, they're looking well beyond the ad accounts. We're looking at product page, offers, discounts, product bundling, CRO on page, etc., etc. All of these things that are just so relevant to how an ad account performs, that all is incorporated in media buying. Can AI replace some of that? Yeah, maybe, but the output is only as good as the input, and there's clearly a lot of input issues with some people. I think I'm excited to see where it goes. I use a lot of AI, as I'm sure we all do, but the human element is still just so important for brands that want consistent growth and consistent scale. AI can get you to a point, but at this stage, I think that the human element of a highly skilled marketer, performance marketer, media buyer, whatever you want to call them, is just still super imperative. That's my take.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think the big thing that I see is AI actually gives a lot of leverage to good media buyers. And I think as opposed to thinking about it replacing media buyers, I think it's more about how do good media buyers utilize and create leverage through implementing the best parts of AI while understanding what doesn't work. I think that's the really big deciphering factor. So to your point, Simon, a lot of AI slop is coming through and getting published as ads. That's clearly not going through a check or review process from somebody who understands the core consumer psychology of what makes a good ad and what drives action. Whereas if it was to be in the right hands, let's say, of someone who actually understood what kind of hooks they need to be creating, what kind of core body, what kind of call to action, all of a sudden you can utilize a lot of AI creative and it can be effective, but you need to know what you're trying to create in the first place. And I think that's the biggest gap that I see. Like even whenever we're doing a lot of stuff with AI, very often the first output that it gives you, or the first, if you're looking at some strategy or brainstorming, it will have a lot of gaps in its knowledge about a certain industry or a certain category or a certain product offering. And it's whenever you teach and train it about the category that you're in or the product offering that your client is selling, it begins to evolve with that. And it begins to understand the kind of output and the kind of things that do and don't work, as opposed to the very top of funnel generic information that comes out. I don't know. I personally think it's an incredible time to be a media buyer. I think some of the things that it personally gives me are things that I used to be afraid of, in the sense that I didn't used to like trying to write a full landing page ad copy and building out the structure for copy, making a high converting landing page. I was like, no, look, I'm very good at media buying, but I don't really want to focus on those areas. And now with the assistance of AI, we can go into a lot more of that landing page, CRO, understanding the back end of funnels in a lot more depth. And then also using AI to, for example, pick holes in what parts of the funnel are not working and why they're not working, and giving advice or feedback on how to improve those things. So yeah, I do think it's a leveler in one sense, that average media buying is going to be replaced very quickly. And I think a lot of large agencies with a number of junior media buyers are going to struggle very aggressively. I think individuals are going to have capacity to take on more business and higher leverage business with essentially the right tool stack of small, lean, highly skilled team with AI implementation and integration into back-end systems that operates effectively and scales with ad accounts, as opposed to just general go-to advice from a prompt.
Interesting. So, Phil, you're deep on the creative strategy side of things. How does AI fit into all that?
Yeah, I agree with both what you guys are saying. I think, to further your point, Ogie, I think it just accelerates the separation of who's good and who's not good. This is just, it's a complete leveler. And it amplifies, again, people with talent. I think a bigger thing here also with the creative and with the media buying is taste. I think taste is more important than ever. And like you said, Ogie, if somebody's first output is the thing they go with, what is the differentiation between any of us? We can all put the same input to get the same output. And knowing what to prompt it, knowing what to give it as an input, knowing what's good versus knowing what's bad is an incredibly leveraged thing, especially in the creative side. Like AI thinks it has taste on creative, but it really doesn't. However, like to the point of thousands of ads being published at the same time, I do think that's where we're going to be going. It seems illogical not to have non-personalized ads. There's a saying from Bezos, like how he determined his whole flywheel was the way you increase the economics of Amazon and grow it is you make things faster, cheaper, and more selection. So that was a flywheel. And for Facebook, I find it to be a better experience if everyone has more personalized ads, given that they're specific and unique and interesting like content. But most people are just spitting out random avatars and creators, and then they don't even know how to allocate budget, which is where the media buying comes into play. I think more people right now are burning money, burning time, and feeling FOMO with trying to put out as many ads as possible. And they're, I think, going further away from why they wanted many ads in the first place. And I think the final point is the easier it is to make something, the more expensive it is to know something. I think that's the ultimate cost now, is like, as a media buyer, as a marketer, as a founder, like we are all replaceable. But our knowledge, knowing what we know, is a thing that can allocate the attention, the tools where they need to go. So that's how I'm positioning myself, and I'm telling everyone on the service side to position themselves is don't focus on making stuff, focus on knowing what to make, because that's the highest leverage thing that we'll have left. Because tools are so easy to use now. I don't know if you guys have been playing with OpenClaw or with this Claude code or Claude bot. It's ridiculous what you can do with it. But the problem is when you start with something from a blank slate, you don't know how to use it. And I think that's how people are using these AI tools is you start from a blank, you start with putting everything out, nothing works, so you scrap it. But these are just tools to solve the problems that you have not solved yet. At least that's how I see them.
Thoughts there, Ogie? Simon?
Yeah, I like it. But I think that from like a implementation point of view, and people just thinking like having the budget to allocate to spitting out hundreds or thousands of ads a month into an ad account is something that I think there's a bit of a misalignment on. So some brands probably want 1,000 ads a month. But you're only spending a couple of thousand a month. There's no way that you're going to be able to get enough data on those ads to really understand how they're going to perform. And I know that Meta needs less and less ad spend to really understand where those ads sit now, but they have to be made with purpose, like a really clear purpose, whether you're working to personas, messaging families, core problems, whatever it is, whatever the structure is that you're creating ads for, it can't just be hit and hope, or 100% of your ads can't be hit and hope anyway. I don't mind some wild testing every now and then to really test something left of field, see if you can tap into a new audience, but that should be your whole strategy.
Phil, interesting one back for you just in relation to CloudBot. Where do you personally find the time or allocate time to learning and upskilling on these new tools to then decide which ones you're going to keep in your tech stack and use and utilize frequently versus which ones are not worth your time? Because there's more than enough that you could spend every minute of every day trying to figure out new tools.
Yeah, I'm big on, I don't like to change things once I know they're working. And I just had such a good workflow with Claude, just regular Claude. And I in particular 4.5, whatever they did in January, they released, I think, 4.5 Opus. This model completely crushed everything else. Like everything I'm producing from copy to strategy is incredible. So once I understood a really good workflow there, I'm like, how do I leverage this and apply this more places? Because I don't have enough time to use this. I found a way to teach my team and teach other people and show them how I'm using it. But then I'm capped myself because now that I'm teaching others, I can't do it myself. And when I saw Claude about 2 weeks later, I was like, it can do that and do things while I'm not actively prompting it. And I just set aside time, like how long am I in Claude for? I don't know, 4 to 6 hours a day. But most of that time that I'm in Claude isn't actually picking a script. I'm creating a process. And if I can just allocate that time to figuring out how I can have a bot create processes for me, I'm just orchestrating process creation. I can just select what's good, what's bad. And it was just a leverage decision. Like over the course of the week, like 20 hours put into learning this thing will save me so much time the following week. And the last point is, do I think this technology will go away? It's a fad. I don't know if you guys have used it. I don't think it's a fad at all. I know Matteo just got on it. I think it's the future of work for sure. Therefore, getting on and learning how to use it will help, one, educating my team and clients, like how I think organizations will be structured, and two, just using it myself to be a practitioner.
I think that's a great point. Just to second that as well, I think going back to your point as well, Ogie, from my observation, I've also seen that AI is replacing a lot of the grunt work and a lot of the button pushing in media buying. And I think a lot of the quote unquote button pusher media buyers are soon going to be replaced by exactly what we're talking about here, OpenClaw. Because essentially OpenClaw can be almost a button pusher media buyer that can do the execution for you as well. And I haven't gone extremely deep in that area, to be fair. But for media buyers that are really thinking and that are full stack and that see the bigger picture, that are very T-shaped, I think AI and these types of agents, it's like putting on, like Tony Stark putting on the Iron Man suit. Like it just amplifies us to be more efficient and effective in our work. Whether it's doing research or helping us analyze the funnel or the ads, or even now with things like OpenClaw helping with the execution side of things too. Like Phil, you shared with me yesterday that you were able to, with an agent, to get it to edit a video or like a short or something like that, which like you haven't even configured like much around that, but like you were able to get an output where it was able to take some raw content and edit that. And so that's what I mean. I think like media buyers will be able to leverage these types of tools much more and handle a lot of the execution.
It's hard to fathom like what a media buyer can do when they have time, because usually we don't have time. We're just stuck in juggling accounts and thinking about all these different things. But the moment you have time, you start thinking of creative solutions. And I think that's what's happened in every technological advancement. When Someone told me this about banks. Like when in the early 1900s, when banks were first released, they didn't have ATMs. So there was lines out the door of people checking in checks. And that was the whole job, is that they're just stamping checks all day. Stopped. And then the tellers became customer relationship people at the end of the day. So then the banks made more money because people wanted more loans because now they knew about other offerings. And I think, now we're going to have time again to think about offers, think about everything you guys were talking about in terms of like T-shaped marketers, because we can't think about those. Some people can, like you guys are doing that. That's why you guys are elite. But most average media buyers don't, because they just think they have to be in the account toggling things all day. And that's further from the truth at this point.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. Like even we notice a lot on some of our longer term clients we're working with for 2-3 years, big e-commerce brands in the UK market, for example. And there's certain elements of our account structures that are not changing weekly or even monthly. We have a core structure and a core strategy that we build. And of course, we review it, and probably every 6 to 12 months we'll tweak and adjust overall strategy and direction depending on where campaigns are moving. But a lot of our conversation is much more around price, offer, competition, and trying to understand how to outcompete our peers in those auctions, and getting into much more, I would say, higher leverage business conversations around how to actually take market share, and also how to measure that growth in market share with using things like brand share of search. And again, I think these are, in lots of ways, much more important conversations for business owners to have, and it allows them to, again, not just see, I guess, us as a partner, as someone who manages a Google ad account, but us as a strategic partner, as someone who helps them grow their business. And I'm personally really enjoying, that sense of having more time back to focus on more of those strategic initiatives, as opposed to being so tied down to minuscule, small tweaks in ad accounts on a day-to-day basis. And like the other big benefit, I think, as well, is that I would say 2 or 3 years ago, my ambition was to build a 20-person agency and scale the operation in terms of headcount. And now I think there's a realization that we can do so much more with a smaller team and have so much more impact for essentially still a small pool of like highly relevant clients. And as opposed to going the traditional agency route, it's just looking at, being honest, me being much more involved in a lot of those accounts and relationships, but also realizing that I can expand my ability to impact more businesses through the benefit of utilizing AI, as opposed to being constrained to managing a couple of accounts individually. You can take on 10, 12 accounts, but still actually have a very high impact on those accounts due to the benefits that AI give us.
That's well said. Yeah, really leaning into that strategy, full stack business acumen. I think those are going to be the media buyers that are really going to be able to leverage AI the most. It also reminds me of something I heard recently on a podcast, how the film industry or like the Hollywood industry is going to get shaken up with AI, and the fact that video generation can just be so cheap. And I heard about some predictions there that go, very likely there's going to be very small teams that are going to be able to produce Avenger-like films at a much, much cheaper rate because of AI. And I wouldn't be surprised if something like that with media buying happens, or even the next age or evolution of agencies won't be these 20, 50 team agencies. It'll be exactly like what you said, Ogie. Tight-knit team of competent A players that are leveraging AI to get much more done and be more high leverage. Coming up on end here, I want to just give the last couple moments for any other thoughts or notes there on the future of marketing, media buying, or will AI replace us?
I think if content becomes so cheap, which it already is, I think I saw this morning that TikTok is getting 36 million new videos uploaded to the platform. And now we have more AI tools being made. So that means that algorithm is going to change with the personalization feed. Distribution is the most important thing. So then how do you guys think about distribution? Obviously, paid media is a hack to get in. But do you think if everybody can create content, obviously distribution is the competitive advantage, knowing how to allocate budget and control attention for consumers to buy product or see messages? You guys think about that at all?
Yeah, I think about it in terms of like volume and across everybody that's advertising. That barrier to entry to have good content is getting lower and lower because of all the tools available to us. But like the cost to have that content delivered through ad platforms keeps getting higher and higher. And at some point, there will be breaking points for brand where their unit economics don't make sense anymore. So I think I often think about distribution in that sense across social platforms and what impact rising ad costs are going to have, increasing volumes going to have, and those sorts of things. I think it's still in a sweet spot at the moment that good media buyers can navigate those challenges very well. But interesting to see how that evolves.
Yeah, the thing that I'd add to that as well is just in relation to, we work a lot in the UK market, and we see that, for example, there's not a massive amount of growth in e-commerce in the UK market. It's a very mature market, and a lot of categories are flat to very small single-digit growth. And if that's the case at an overall economic level, if you want to grow as a business, you have to take share from competitors. And therefore, this increase in access in terms of, first of all, new businesses entering the market, because it's much easier to spin up a Shopify website, get products drop shipped from China, and think that you're going to compete with big players. That has become easier than ever in principle, but much more challenging in reality. And I think the same goes with advertising. And to Simon's point, cost is a big challenge. So yes, you can get creatives built cheaply and quickly. Yes, you can run Meta campaigns, Google campaigns, but can you do so profitably and actually run a feasible business? And that's where I think, again, and even in general, the overall point of people thinking that AI is going to massively increase economic value within a number of mature markets, that value has to come from somewhere. And that value has to come from consumers to some extent in terms of people buying those products and services. And I think that's probably the missing part of the loop right now, is that there's so much potential access for new entrants and so much potential increase in terms of additional players in auctions, but there's still the same amount of consumers. And therefore that, I think, is a more challenging thing to comprehend with. And therefore, as a result, it becomes much more about your ability to be better than competitors than just to enter and do the same as everybody else. So it's like, if you follow the AI structure, which is what everybody's doing, you end up with a very average brand that doesn't compete and doesn't scale, versus that one which really stands out and outperforms competitors and also outperforms in terms of advertising, is going to take market share and grow in a challenging market.